What is happening with EVs? What is the big picture? Is this the death knell of the American automotive industry?
You're going to eventually reach a point where we're just too far behind.
Customers weren't as into them as everyone had hoped.
Trump Media and Technology Group is now a nuclear fusion company.
They have to come up with the kind of rationalization for doing it. They're talking about how to sort of merge the social media capabilities with the fusion company.
So when I was growing up, there were no songs from the 2000s because of how it was not, that was in the future. But now, classic rock songs encompass music from the 2000s and from the 1990s. It's a whole new world. But
when I was growing up, there were no songs from the 2000s because that was in the future. I feel like that is the greatest thing that anyone has ever.
The best analysis we've had the whole episode.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Slate Money, your guide to the business and finance news of the week. I'm Felix Salmon of Bloomberg. I'm here with Emily Peck of Axios.
Hello, hello.
I'm here with Elizabeth Spiers of the New York Times.
Hello.
And especially wonderfully, I have Craig Trudell beaming in from the Bloomberg offices in London. Craig, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Craig, introduce yourself. Who are you?
I am the global automotive editor for Bloomberg.
What that means is that you are covering the big picture in cars. And so that is what I want to talk about this week with you. There was big news from Ford, but it turns out, for those of us who notice the rest of the planet, that there's big news from the European Union. There's lots of stuff going on in China. So we are going to talk about what is happening with EVs. What is the big picture? Is this the death knell of the American automotive industry? We are also going to, of course, talk about the fact that Trump Media and Technology Group is now a nuclear fusion company for reasons. Emily is going to wax lyrical about the wonders of Hallmark Christmas movies. We have a Slate Plus segment where we reveal the one gift we wish that someone would give us. It's a happy holiday episode of Slate Money. It's coming right up. So, obviously, Craig, we're going to start with you because there has been enormous news this week on the EV front, not just in Europe, which seems to have started backpedaling on its desire to make sure everyone only drives EVs, but also in the United States, where Ford took a $19 billion charge, and a bunch of that was real money, like actual cash that they've just sort of gone up in smoke. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but the general message that I got from Ford was, we were doing EVs because that's what Joe Biden told us to, and now Donald Trump has told us to not do EVs, so we're not doing EVs. And if only the US government could be consistent, that would be great. But otherwise, we're just going to go back and forth according to who's in the White House. This doesn't seem smart.
I think that's generally right. I think it's maybe even slightly more complicated than that, right? In that, like, even when Trump was in office the first time, you had Tesla sort of as this, rising power within the industry, and everybody in Detroit was freaking out about, the Model 3, eventually the Model Y. And all the while, Trump was undermining fuel economy and emission standards. And so they had to kind of navigate that. Then you have Biden come in. He says, he wants half of vehicles sold to be, EVs or hybrids by the end of the decade. Everybody sort of, rushes to meet that, vision, and also, make subsidy grabs and DOE loans and so on and so forth. And then absolutely the rug gets pulled out from under Ford and the rest of the industry when Trump comes back. And he goes even further this time. He eliminates penalties for fuel economy standards. Those made a lot of headlines recently, but they don't matter because there's nothing sort of enforcing those new, weaker rules. And emission standards may be going away as well if we have the EPA just decide that, it's not appropriate for us to be governing tailpipe emissions either.
Jim Farley and his statements and like just reading through
Jim Farley is the Ford CEO?
The Ford
Yes.
CEO. And just reading through a lot of the commentary, there was a lot of, yes, but it's not just the fact that the Trump administration pulled away from EVs, it's that customers weren't as into them as everyone had hoped, truly. And that doesn't seem like a fib.
I think there's absolutely validity to that. I grew up in a sort of rural area of Michigan, and when I go back home and talk with friends and family members about hey, would you consider buying a fully electric vehicle? They either look at me funny or just laugh in my face. And I think a lot of America still forget about buying electric vehicles. They're still buying really thirsty F-Series pickups, right? Those are still Ford's bread and butter. I think there was, some progress being made in sort of changing that mindset. And I think we have to give Tesla credit in that regard. And yet it's really been a case where Tesla is the only one who's been successful in the US in sort of getting Americans into EVs.
So I have two questions about that. One is, like, I have a friend of mine has a Ford Lightning pickup truck. This is their electric version of the F-150. He has like a pool company in North Carolina, and he not only loves his truck, but he's like, all of the like burly construction guys who come around like are obsessed with it and say that they want one and then completely love it, and they're like, oh my god, that's so cool. And I do think that there is more of a like a love for EVs, or like an excitement about EVs in principle, than necessarily has shown up in the market. I think the people who say that they love it, I think they do love it. They're just not necessarily going out and buying it. But by the same token, you say that the Tesla's the only game in town anymore, which is kind of true when it comes to the pure EVs. But their sales have been slowing for the past 2 years, partly because, the libs don't want to give money to Elon Musk. And I need to ask you, as a Bloomberg reporter, like, how is it possible for a company with not only zero, but negative growth to be worth like over $1 trillion? Like, I don't understand how the stock market hasn't punished Tesla yet for the fact that, like, the only way you can get to that kind of evaluation is by extrapolating massive future growth, and the growth just isn't here.
Yeah, the growth has not only dissipated, it has disappeared. You have a situation where I feel like, to borrow a phrase from one of my colleagues, Dana Hull, who covers Tesla for us out of San Francisco, Elon Musk is bored with making cars. And I think part of that boredom is a legitimate sort of, issue of, kind of been there, done that. I also think it's a sort of acknowledgement of the idea of, what, actually the car business is really freaking difficult. And if I can sort of, wave these bright, shiny objects of humanoid robots and robo-taxis that may or may not actually exist sort of over here, I can distract everybody from the fact that my sales are not only, slowing, they're actually declining. And, I've torched my brand.
Do you think, looking at the F-Series, the cancellations, I have a theory also. I grew up in a rural area where every household has a big ass truck. And do you think that specifically maybe like people are nervous about trucks as fully EV?
Absolutely. I think in retrospect, they were the wrong, sort of body style to try to fully electrify, right off the bat. It made sense in that, on one hand, yes, Americans like to buy big ass trucks. On the other hand, they want to be able to tow. They want to be able to haul. And, a battery depletes very quickly when you're towing or hauling things. And, in order to be able to power a vehicle that's so big and so heavy, you need a bigger, heavier battery. And it's just, sort of a matter of physics that, there was sort of skepticism from the engineers who know better that this was ever going to work out. And I think in retrospect that skepticism was warranted.
So Ford's bright idea is, correct me if I'm wrong here, to basically replace the Lightning, which is their electric truck, with what's known as an EREV, basically an electric truck that has a little gas tank in it that you can fill up with petrol and then that doesn't move the wheels. It doesn't actually do it, it will work as a kind of generator to recharge the battery if you need it to. And so obviously there are going to be tailpipe emissions from that, but it's going to be a much smaller engine than you would find in a normal truck. Is this like the future, or is this just another dead end?
I love this aspect of the story because it's sort of, we have to go back to, remember when General Motors went bankrupt, and like the one reason that America wanted to save GM, or one of the big reasons the Obama administration was like, you know what, this company is worth saving? It was the Chevrolet Volt. Do you remember the plug-in hybrid? That was an extended range electric vehicle, an EREV. And so we're basically going to voltify pickups and SUVs. I do think that actually sort of solves this issue of Americans liking bigger vehicles and extending the range of these vehicles by having an onboard gas engine. And in retrospect, that was part of what sort of was the Volt's undoing, right? Was that it was kind of, as a concept, it looked really sexy, and then once it made it into production, it kind of looked like a funky sort of toastery compliance car, and it sold like a funky toastery compliance car.
Who doesn't want to drive around in a funky toaster?
Craig, so the U.S. seems to be kind of moving backwards on EVs. The EU also seems to be moving backwards. They've like punted. They had a goal of 2030. I think all electric vehicles.
2035.
2035. They punted on that. And then all the pundits are like, but China is moving ahead. China is leading the way now. Did China just basically win the EV race? If there was an
haven't they
EV
been
race?
winning it for years?
Is it official now?
Is it official now?
I think it is both true that China is absolutely lapping the rest of the world with electric vehicles. I also think that we may be getting carried away and sort of, saying, woe is Europe, and, China is sort of running circles around. Because if we actually look at what the rules are in China, they have not set a timeline for going fully electric, and their leading manufacturers, BYD being the biggest and baddest of them, they make a plug-in hybrid for every battery electric vehicle that they make. So I think there's a little bit of a tendency to sort of lean into this notion that China is just so world beating because the volumes are so large. And yet Europe has made much more progress than the U.S. has. And I do think that, even with these rules softening a bit, we're going from wanting 100% emissions reduction by 2035 to 90%. And yes, there's some fudging of that 90% number where they're going to give credit to locally made vehicles. And so there will be some, sort of compliance credits that make that 90% number kind of fudged. But the direction of travel is going to remain that manufacturers here in Europe really have to go electric quickly. And that's why you're seeing some whinging on the part of, the Germans after this announcement.
So I guess the first question is it's true that in China, there is a broad mix of drivetrains, but in Europe, if we fast forward to 2035, where there's a 90% reduction in emissions, that means, to use a technical term, a fuck ton of the cars being sold are going to be electric, are going to be pure electric. And just looking at where we are today and who the big EV manufacturers are and who is selling the EVs and who is not selling the EVs, is it reasonable to assume that most of those EVs being sold in Europe are actually going to wind up being Chinese?
I think they have had no trouble continuing to grow at this really incredible rate, even in spite of tariffs being put in place just last year. I do think that there is one of the stories that I'm going to be watching in 2026 is which manufacturers start to hit a ceiling on sort of their volumes for Europe, in the sense that I do think that while BYD, for example, has made much more of a name for themselves as a manufacturer, they do not have a Corolla or just a sort of they don't have the brand cachet or the recognition. If you ask the average German or French person on the street to name a single BYD car, I think 99 out of 100 would say, yeah, sorry, I can't do it. And it's really going to take them some time to do some brand building, get more established, and go beyond just fleet cars.
Don't people just go out and buy a BYD car? Does it matter whether they know what the name of the model is?
It's honestly a good question, because I think the price is so good and so substantially competitive, and you get sort of more for that money as well. And I think the Chinese companies also have been reluctant to be too aggressive on price because of concerns about what Brussels will do if and when they do get sort of really out over their skis in that regard. So that will be the sort of counter to my point of what maybe there's only so much growing they can do.
And Ford weirdly announced an EV in Europe as a joint venture with, was it Renault?
Renault, yes. I think that's a really interesting one, because we've been watching the way things have been trending with Ford, particularly on the passenger vehicle front. The amount of market share loss there has been so substantial that we've started to wonder, is Ford Europe long for this world? I do think they make a lot of commercial vehicles and vans that business is still strong for them and is more profitable anyway. But it was absolutely fascinating because they already have a partnership with Volkswagen, where you basically have Ford badged Volkswagen electric vehicles made in Germany, and so we're going to see more of that just with the French now.
So the big question, I think, from an American perspective is this one, which is the Europeans are still going to be forcing their manufacturers to really move to EVs. The Chinese, as we know, are going to be a major force in EVs come what may. So we're going to have two major markets and manufacturing powerhouses building a huge number of EVs in a world which I think everyone agrees eventually it's going to become electric. It just makes all the sense in the world. So given that the US manufacturers are just basically not in the game anymore, Tesla notwithstanding, is this the end of American car companies as a global force? Like, they're just going to be sitting here in their domestic market, insulated from Chinese competition because the Chinese don't import into the United States, and they sell their, ICE cars in the US until they don't, and then eventually everyone just buys electric cars from somewhere else, and like the long-term future of the US auto market or the US auto industry just seems to be zero.
I think there's a real concern, especially just from the perspective of like what the industry needs in order to make electric vehicles work is scale. And they have, really struggled with, reaching the sorts of volumes where you do, get to a point where your batteries can be cheaper and you can bring price down and offer consumers actually affordable electric vehicles.
And that scale needs to be global, right? Like, just even the United States isn't big enough.
Yeah, I think, the way in which China is absolutely dominating here is the fact that you have companies like CATL just making, so many more batteries than there is demand for, that the price is just, so much lower than the rest of the world. And so you are going to see a ton of electric vehicles, particularly here in Europe, that are, built with Chinese-made battery cells. And, that's the sort of only path to affordability for the moment. And if the U.S., kind of continues down this road of, every 4 years zigging and zagging in this drastic way, you're going to eventually, reach a point where, we're just too far behind, and, EVs are just not going to work here the way they work in the rest of the world.
On which, happy note, let's talk about how there are a couple of like woke things in the energy industry. One of them is EVs, and Trump is anti-EVs because it's woke. Another one of them is nuclear power, and especially clean nuclear power, because like the environmentalists love that shit. And somehow, for all that clean nuclear power is woke coded, it is now also Trump coded, because the Trump Media and Technology Group, the parent company of Truth Social, announced this week that it was going to merge with a nuclear fusion company. And now it is a nuclear fusion company, which makes all the sense in the world, right, Emily?
It actually does make sense. So at first, it doesn't make sense. You're like, Truth Social, that company makes $4 million a year, maybe, and has like $400 million a year in losses.
And pays its chief executive $47 million a year.
Devin Nunes, of course. And you're like, what? It doesn't make any sense that it's doing anything. Then you read about the nuclear fusion company, TAE. This company is legit. It's been around since 1988. It's funded by like a who's who of corporate America, plus Charles Schwab. We know him from our ads. He was an original investor. They have on their board the former energy secretary under Obama, who's like a nuclear physicist. So this is a legitimate company betting on nuclear fusion, which, to be clear, has not been commercialized and is like still quite nascent and doesn't really produce anything. What they need is money, and what a company with Trump's name on it now, because he is the president, what they are able to do, not build a social media empire, but they're able to amass money, cash monies. People want to give the company money for reasons.
They can take all of the Bitcoin that they've been buying and convert it into a fusion reactor.
They can fuse and make energy of.
They can,
anyway,
they can pay their fusion researchers in Bitcoin. This all makes perfect sense.
It does make sense, though. It does make sense, because I think the Journal story had a quote that was just like, this is a company in search of a business, basically. They have money. People want they want Trump's branding because he is the president and he has a lot of power and he's not afraid to use it. And so why not give it to this company that is building a technology that doesn't make any money, that just needs lots of money? So it kind of makes sense.
I kind of like it because it's a little bit AI coded in that, like, the reason everyone wants power is because AI. But really it's just like, people have been dreaming about nuclear fusion for decades. And it's been, the great. Yeah, and by the way, in terms of EVs, like the carbon emissions from EVs, if you sort of trace them back to where the electricity comes from, are non-negligible right now. If that electricity comes from nuclear fusion, then brilliant. It's basically free energy for all. It's awesome. We love it. It's great. Total utopia. Also, like, physically impossible as far as we can make out. But this company, as you say, is convinced that, it has some technology that will work and they'll be able to build a utility scale power plant by 2031 or something. Count me skeptical, but like, if they can get a few extra $1 billion from Trumpy types to try and make that happen, okay, great.
Yeah, I love the fact that, the rationale for doing this is fairly straightforward. It's just access to money. But Matt Levine had a great column about this that included a slide from the deck that they presented where they have to come up with the kind of rationalization for doing it that is not as obvious as the one we're talking about. And so the slide just looks completely unhinged. They're talking about how to sort of merge the social media capabilities with the fusion company. and they're just throwing out like everything. It looks like a really bad brainstorming session with, red yarn connecting all these disparate things. It's worth reading Matt's column just to see that slide.
He also says that the Truth Social's or Trump Media's revenue is about as much as a top Substack newsletter.
Craig, we now seem, for better or for worse, to have reached the point, and it honestly took longer than I thought it would, given the whole SPAC boom of 2021, to where we've reached the point at which there is now a publicly traded nuclear fusion company with a multi-billion-dollar market cap. This seems like a milestone.
Yeah, I think my great irony as someone who spends way too much time following every musing of Elon Musk online. I'm getting a huge kick out of the fact that he's been shitting all over nuclear fusion, and even as he's sort of made this sort of grand makeup with Trump. You have the Trump world sort of Truth Social combining with the nuclear fusion company. So he now has both, X going after a Trump-tied company, and he's also, got all of his solar, things that he is going off on. And so, yeah, I guess in short, I would say, this makes about as much sense to me as like the AI data centers in space idea that Musk and his ilk are pushing up.
So Musk's point, and Musk very rarely makes much sense, but he does. I'm going to give him a little bit of credit for this one. He's like, guys, we have the biggest fucking nuclear fusion reactor. It has been going for billions of years. It's called the sun. It produces infinite amounts of money, basically. All we need to do is put some solar panels out there and capture that energy, and that is fusion. And
Wait, that makes sense.
And why would we want to recreate a sun on planet Earth when we actually have one right here that we can capture the energy from? He's not wrong.
He's got a point.
That definitely makes sense.
He's also the guy that says we should all go live on Mars, even though we have a planet right here that's perfectly serviceable.
Yeah, I mean, internally consistent is not something that anyone's ever accused Musk of being, but I really do go back and forth on this one. On the one hand, I don't see solar really meeting all of our energy needs. We're going to need a lot more than that. And if fusion works, it's almost like magic. It is, in Arthur C. Clarke's words, indistinguishable from magic. No one's been able to make it work. The technology to make it work does not exist. I think that, even Trump's money raising abilities are not going to be enough to raise enough money to make it work, or B, even, I don't think money alone can do this. But, I'm happy there are humans out there trying to make it work, because even if there's a small probability, that sounds great to me. Hey there! Before we get back to the show, I want to tell you about The Slatest, which is Slate's daily newsletter that lands in your inbox every evening. It's written by Slate's editor-in-chief, Hilary Fry, and it is the perfect way to end your day a little smarter than you began it. Every issue pulls together the sharpest stories, the most surprising news, and the can't-miss Slate podcasts, including this one, plus smart analysis and a bit of well-earned distraction. From DC to Hollywood to the algorithm, The Slatest keeps you clued in to the world and to Slate. You can sign up right now at slate.com/theslatest.
Before we go down the road of speculating about nuclear fusion, which Craig probably knows a lot about it, but I don't think we know that much about it. Can we also raise this question, which I've been thinking about this morning, which is theoretically, Trump is going to be president only for another 3 years. What happens to all this money and all this juice that his name has once he leaves office? What happens to nuclear fusion's prospects now that they've tied themselves
obviously
to
they
this
just
guy?
need to raise all of the money between now and the end of his presidency, right?
Okay.
And then at that point they've reached takeoff velocity, or they haven't. I think that's the bet.
Okay, so it's just get us the cash now while the Trump is hot. And then once it's not, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
The classic thing about raising money in the stock market is you do it when you can, and when you can raise lots of money, and you don't do it when you can't. Okay,
and presumably the executives and the brilliant minds behind Trump media, they're not going to there's no synergies where they're going to integrate themselves with the nuclear physicist on the board who used to work in the Obama administration.
Yeah, I think the nuclear physicist
force him out or something
on the board. There's this hilarious co-CEO situation where basically the nuclear physicists are going to keep on running the nuclear physics, and Devin Nunes is going to keep on running Truth Social, and they're just going to have this kind of, what maybe once a year they can meet for coffee or something and shake each other's hands and then go back to what they were doing before.
Isn't there something just a little disconcerting, though, about a nuclear company tied to what's basically a meme stock?
Yes.
Well, I mean, remember it's fusion, right? It's not like radioactive nuclear.
Just fusion.
Just the power of the sun and trying to harness it or whatever.
Although apparently there are like interesting like radioactive things that are byproducts that we're all so far away from that at the moment that I think we can.
Well, I'm glad Devin Nunes is anywhere near that sort of thing. That's
All I remember about him is something to do with a cow.
He got very angry that there was a guy parodying him on Twitter, I think. And it was the account was called Devin Nunes Cow. Something like that. And
I see.
he sued that guy.
The cow is not involved with nuclear fusion.
What? Who knows? Anything is this is 2026. Anything is possible. But yes, talking about the end of the year, the holiday season, Emily. Tell us what is going on in Connecticut. Emily is so happy. This is the happiest
She looks very
I've ever
blissed
seen
out
her.
right now. This is her favorite.
Okay. Connecticut, which is a state, right, is apparently the location for at least 22 holiday films made by Hallmark, which is the leader in the original holiday movie space, which everyone at this point should know. And now Connecticut is now promoting tours of the locations behind these 22 films that were filmed, original holiday films that were filmed in Connecticut. So you can go and you can be super cozy. You can get like a hot cocoa and you can wear your gloves and your hat and your scarf, but not around your neck. A scarf in a Hallmark movie is worn on the coat. It has no purpose other than decoration because it's warm when they film those things. Anyways, but you can go and you can wrap the scarf however you want, drink your cocoa, and walk to these different locations. And this is just the latest news in a long, the latest news in this booming industry, which is original holiday films, which now happen every year. And I think more and more people are saying they watch them, including me, Emily Peck. I'm converted. It started with Hot Frosty, which we discussed previously on the show, from Netflix, which is more, now that I'm in the Hallmark space, Hot Frosty is like very much more like risque, kind of like edgy holiday original film because of the showing of the naked man, of the chest and the six pack, which typically not shown in the Hallmark holiday movies, which are all rated G, usually only have 1 to 2 kisses, and that's it. And usually one of the 2 kisses is an almost kiss because there's like, and then you wait till the end for the full kiss. So there's a whole economy behind Hallmark movies. A lot of it is happening in Connecticut.
I really love it. I love this almost as much as Emily does.
I love it unironically. Don't be ironic.
No, I'm not being ironic. I mean, I have to admit I have never seen a Hallmark Christmas movie, but I love the idea of Hallmark Christmas movies, and I especially love the idea that there's all of these like mom and pop tour operators with, tour coaches driving around small Connecticut towns. I will also say that over the past couple of years of using ChatGPT, I have never received a better answer from ChatGPT as the answer I received when I typed in, what are the essential formulaic elements of a Hallmark Christmas movie? And I mean, totally nailed it as someone who's never seen one, but Emily, you can confirm.
Okay.
1, a familiar, non-threatening protagonist.
Yes.
Who is a successful but emotionally incomplete woman, often big city career focused, who is temporarily displaced into a small town in Connecticut for Christmas reasons. Mm-hmm. The character flaw is not moral failure, but misalignment.
Yes.
She has chosen ambition over what really matters. Number 2, a picturesque small town as moral geography. The town functions as a values incubator and is a contrast to the alienation of the city. 3, a love interest who embodies local virtue, typically male, hands-on profession like carpenter or tree farm owner, fireman, emotionally available but modestly guarded. He is already complete. He does not have his own, thing to overcome. 4, a Christmas-adjacent inciting incident.
Yes.
Like being stranded due to weather or inheriting an inn or something like that.
Or like the gingerbread bake-off and you have to get it organized.
which gives a reason for proximity without overt desire.
And cooperation. The couple has to cooperate and do a task together.
Right. 5, a threat to tradition that is never real. So there's some kind of corporate development or sale of a beloved local business, but the threat is entirely reversible. No one loses their livelihood.
Yes, they almost closed down the Catnip Cafe, for example, in one of my favorites of this year. The Cat Cafe was in danger of being closed down by a Scrooge-like evil character who turns out to be basically fine and nice in the end, and nothing bad happens. Spoiler alert.
The stakes.
The stakes are
are
so
low.
The stakes are so low.
And it's wonderful.
This is my favorite one. Number 6, montage-based intimacy, which always includes, and they've got 4 bullet points here, tree decorating, baking cookies, ice skating, or charity planning.
There's also walking around with hot cocoa and looking at the sights.
Yeah, that's the important montage.
I guess my quibbles would be, I know the trope is big city girl winds up in hometown for some kind of something has happened and they have to be there, and then they learn the lesson of like the hometown is amazing or whatever. But sometimes it's a man. Like I watched at least one this year where it's a guy who's back in his hometown. Yeah, it's more diverse.
All of this is a conservative wish casting and this is why white evangelicals love Hallmark movies. My mom is like a connoisseur. But the sort of storylines are all about explaining to the big city career woman how wrong she was, and she discovers that her hometown was great all along. And this is a fantasy that every conservative parent I know has about their adult children who move to big cities. But I also find it funny that these things are always filmed in Connecticut, because if the trope is that the jaded city person goes back to, rural hometown or whatever, jaded city people move to Connecticut all the time and they just could, commute back in. So
they're often in upstate New York. However, I watched at least 2 to 3 that, including one about the Buffalo Bills. What was it called? The Buffalo Bills Christmas Story. It was a sequel to last year's Chiefs Christmas Story. It's like a football themed one where the 2 families bond over their love of the Buffalo Bills, and the main love interest, his job is not veterinarian or pediatrician. No, he manages the new construction of the Bills Stadium. So very relatable.
Are there any folding tables harmed in the filming of that Buffalo Bills?
I feel like folding tables appear in it's a common trope. But like, just to fast forward to the end here, 10, closure without consequences. By the end, romance is secured, community is preserved, and future ambiguity is gently erased.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it's never like we're getting married. It's just like we have kissed and we have plans for next week. It's not. I think it's more progressive than Elizabeth might be saying, which I understand that it's a fantasy sometimes to move to the hometown. But we did see in COVID, many people did move to their hometowns or out of the big cities in pursuit of this very dream that we see in the Hallmark films.
A lot of New Yorkers, they moved up to Putnam County or Kingston.
Yeah. They fall in love with their best friend from high school, who is extremely good looking, and they haven't noticed until they were 32 years old, came back to their hometown, and coincidentally, he's still single, but totally emotionally mature, just like Felix said from his ChatGPT list. It's amazing. And people say that Hollywood is dead and movies are over, but there is this booming market in Hallmark films that I feel like we must note. Also, I will say that the films are short. They are usually 2 hours or less. And I think Hollywood could take a lesson from these, Chris Nolan needs to sit down and watch a few of these things and take some pointers away. I really think that.
What short movie I just watched and absolutely loved? And since we're on movies right now, I'm just going to break the rules of Slate Money with that these things have to be vaguely money related. No, they do not. If you want a great family film to watch this Christmas, if you are the last person in the world who has not seen this movie yet, go see or sit down and watch K-pop Demon Hunters. Love that movie.
You watched it?
I watched it.
What is it about?
It's right there in the title, Emily.
I hate to say it, but Elizabeth is 100% correct. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It's about a K-pop girl band who fight demons. But the twist is, because it's not just that, the twist is that the demons they're fighting are a K-pop boy band. Oh!
And the music's good? You like the bops?
Music is good, and it's, again, it's 95 minutes long, it's perfect length, and it's fun, and it's touching, and it's great.
I don't know what else to say. I think the careers of the people in the Hallmark movies are wonderful too, because in life, I feel like we're always talking to and meeting people with like the weirdest job titles and you don't understand what they are, like marketing consultant, TikTok guru, AI, HR, MC, CP. Like if you're ever on LinkedIn, the titles make no sense. But in the Hallmark movies, everyone has clear jobs. It's like very much like when you were growing up and you like read like about Busytown or whatever. Everyone has like a job you fully can comprehend and is like good. It's like good.
You know what you never find in a Hallmark movie? Someone falling in love with a blogger.
No, but I did watch one that was about a big city newspaper columnist who gets run out of town but is so beloved that her fan base writes to the newspaper. Then they're so angry that they have to hire her back. A newspaper columnist.
That definitely happens.
What?
That definitely happened.
It was very realistic. I was like, did the algorithm, like, did it just find me? Like, did it know that this is exactly what I want to, watch a movie about?
Yeah, we will. I will personally do the letter writing campaign to make sure that the newspaper hires you back. Guys, we should have a numbers round. Elizabeth, you have a number?
I do. It's $435, and that's in dollars. And that's how much a tomahawk steak costs at Le Chien in the West Village. So we had earlier
Wait, how many dollars?
$435.
Oh my God.
That's an expensive steak.
Yes, and we've already talked about beef prices going up, but this has nothing to do with it. This is from a Times piece about restaurants in Manhattan specifically coming up with these insanely expensive dishes that they sort of gratuitously, put caviar on them and whatever.
So you can get a much cheaper steak there if you don't want to spend $435.
I don't know if you can there. They also have a $260 turbo fillet. But the point is, this is in a Times piece about these incredibly expensive dishes at Manhattan restaurants being, more and more over the top because the people who are willing to pay for the $435 steak are like part of the fun for them is that they're paying $435 for a steak. And so one of the chefs at one of these restaurants with exorbitantly priced food said, anytime we put something on the menu that is insanely expensive, it immediately sells out. Doesn't matter what it is.
I love it. Yeah. These people deserve to be separated from their money.
Why is it so expensive? I mean,
because
I guess
because it has a big price tag on it, Emily. That's why. That's the whole. It's the same reason why people spend $5,000 on a bottle of vodka at a nightclub. It's just, the flex.
And there's nothing. It's not like it has a bunch of stuff on it.
I'm sure it has a bunch of stuff on it, but I'm sure that stuff is like 1% of the price.
Holy cow! Literally.
But I also have a Manhattan number, so I feel like this is a good segue. My Manhattan number is 159, which is the number of Starbucks in Manhattan, which is down from 192 last year. It is shrunk by 33 Starbucks. And for the first time in living memory, what this means is that Starbucks is not the biggest chain in Manhattan. Dunkin' Donuts has 169 outlets in Manhattan. So Dunkin' Donuts is now not only the top chain in Brooklyn, Bronx, and Queens, which it always has been, but also in Manhattan. Well done, Dunkin'. Also, as we all know, the Slate Money listeners know, Dunkin' Donuts has better coffee than Starbucks. So this is good and true. Craig, you're nodding along.
Oh man, yeah. I'm trying to think of actually the last time that I had a Dunkin' because I've been over here in London for too long.
Come back and get yourself come back in the summer and get a Dunkin' iced coffee, because the Dunkin' iced coffee is especially good. Emily, believe me, you're a coffee drinker again now. You should embrace
I don't like
the Dunkin'.
coffee that much. Sorry.
What's your number?
My number is 11.2. That's a percent. 11.2% is the share of songs from the 1990s on Q104.3's 2025 list of the greatest classic rock songs of all time. That's 1,403 songs.
Is that an oxymoron? Is it impossible to be classic rock and also from the 90s?
I mean, it's a great question. So in 2005, the share was only 6.3%. So it's almost doubled in the 20 years. And I got this number from Chris Della Riva's Substack, where he analyzed all 1,043 classic rock songs on Q104.3's list, because they do it every year. And it was sort of fun to think about. It's basically like time passes and history changes with time, and what people consider classic rock evolves. So when I was growing up, there were no songs from the 2000s because of how it was not, that was in the future. But now classic rock songs encompass music from the 2000s and from the 1990s. It's a whole new world. But
when I was growing up, there were no songs from the 2000s because that was in the future. I feel like that is the greatest thing that anyone has ever.
The best analysis we've had the whole episode.
Thank you. When my column goes dark, please write in. The only other thing I wanted to say was I kind of was looking through, I don't know what happened to me last night, but I was like reading all the songs. I was getting really into it because when I was growing up, I really liked classic rock. Less than 1% of the artists on the 1,043 were women. Like it's all guys.
So tell me, give me an example of a 1990s classic rock song. I want to know what counts.
That's wow. Why didn't I write any down? So like there's some stuff from like Green Day.
This is bad.
The new classics. Let's see, what do we got? I don't know.
I can feel myself aging as we're talking about this.
Songs released before. So like, okay, these are from the 2000s, but they're also in the canon now. Two Green Days, Boulevard of Broken Dreams. I don't know. Bon Jovi, It's My Life. Apparently, that's a 2000s song. Who knew? It's classic. It's considered classic rock now. But for some reason, I didn't write any 90s songs down. So
all right, we do not need to go down this rabbit hole. It's fine. It's fine.
I'm just gonna tell you.
Jasmine can cut this whole bit out. Craig, what is your number?
You were already all over this, Felix, during the cars segment, talking about Tesla. My number is 1,629,252,000,000, all round there. That is Tesla's all-time high market cap. It is insane to me that
and that's like now.
Yeah, that was as of Tuesday. So they dropped a bit Wednesday, went back up Thursday. This is a stock that is, of course, highly volatile.
Explain.
But it is insane.
Explain. Like, of all the times for Tesla to reach an all-time high, like, why now?
I mean, his humanoid robot, the last I saw it in public was handing out gummies in Times Square. It does nothing of use. And I think for the most part, the sort of optimism of late has been a combination of OMG, we're going to pay Musk $1 trillion. Isn't that great? And the second thing is robotaxis and, the optimism about this notion that they're going to have fully driverless cars.
But now Waymo is raising cash at a much lower valuation, right? And it actually has robotaxis.
Yeah. And Musk is sort of just this week, I think the big catalyst was there was this video on X of a Model Y going around Austin without anyone in it. But we know that he's faked videos like this before, and we know that his quote unquote robotaxis in Texas keep crashing despite the fact that they have somebody, in the car to try and prevent against crashes. So I don't see that scaling substantially in 2026, but we shall see.
If anyone believes in efficient markets, let them look at this $1.6 trillion valuation for Tesla and explain that one. If you do, if you can, send a note in to slatemoney@slate.com. And yeah, thank you for listening this week. This has been a fun one. Thank you to Jessamine Molly and Shana Roth and Micah Phillips for producing. A special thanks to Craig Trudell for coming in and being with us from London, England. And we will be back next week with more Slate Money. And remember to check out the Slatest, Slate's daily newsletter. It's your daily update on the most urgent, surprising, and unusual news delivered straight to your inbox. A special thanks to all our Slate Plus members. If you haven't already, consider joining. Slate Plus members get unlimited access to all of Slate's journalism, plus they get ad-free podcasts, and they help support our independent reporting.